It feels like I literally just sat down to do my August wrap up like a week ago, and somehow here we are already wrapping up September. I had an excellent month of reading in September. I read lots of great books, some not so great unfortunately. I did have quite a few in the 3-star range and below a little bit, but also lots in the 4-star and above, and some really standout reads this month. Let's get right into the stats. So in September, I read a grand total of 16 books and DNF'd 3, which was a total of 5,501 pages with 62.5 hours of audiobook listening. I will, as always, start with my DNFs very quickly. So the first DNF was Fang fiction. I'm so sad about this one. I'd had it on my TBR for a hot minute. I was so hyped for it, and then it just unfortunately was not the book for me. I was going into this for a very campy, silly, fun vampire book, and that's definitely what it was. But then at the same time, the main character is struggling with the aftermath of being sexually assaulted, and that is a huge part of the book. And even just within the first little bit that I read, we watched her have to face her attacker in person for the first time, and that combined with the really silly tone of the book just really didn't vibe with me at all. I felt like that should have been 2 different books, you know, and it just didn't quite feel appropriate to be having this level of campiness next to a very serious topic. So not the book for me, but could totally be the book for somebody else. I also DNF'd Cubs and Campfires, which I'm also very sad about. This one is a queer contemporary romance. It sounded really fun. I read very little of this one, and I could immediately tell that I was not going to vibe with it. The main character is a journalist who is challenged by his boss to do a summer of no sex for the sake of an article. But as somebody who's demisexual, I could immediately not get behind that because I could just see where the plot was going, where this character was going to commit to this and then meet somebody, and it was going to be this huge struggle to try and resist, and I just cannot relate to that in any capacity. And I could tell that reading that kind of storyline, I would probably just kind of feel irritated because I can't imagine not being able to resist, and that just wouldn't be believable for me. I understand that like not everyone's demisexual, but just my lived experience is that, what do you mean you can't possibly resist that for a few months? You know, anyways, it was just not my vibe. And then my last DNF of the month was The Low Low Woods, which is a horror graphic novel. I was enjoying it at first. I liked the atmosphere and the plot had good promise, but as I continued, I just really wasn't interested in it. I was gonna push through just because it was really short. I can read a graphic novel usually in an hour, and I was trying to do that, and then I got halfway through and I was like, why though? So I DNF'd that one as well. Moving on to the books that I did read, I had no 1 or 1.5 star reads this month, which is great. I love that for me, but unfortunately I did have a couple of 2-star reads. So first up was Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist. This was pretty terrible. I read this book and my next one that I'll talk about, I think in the same week, and that was probably a mistake because I honestly have no idea the differences between these 2 books right now. I know this one, the Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist one, this is the sapphic one, and I think had a murder mystery involved. Yes, okay, this was the one where the one character, her girlfriend died, and now her girlfriend is a ghost trying to set her up with the new girl in town. I think that's the plot. So I didn't mind the premise of it. I thought it was really fun. I just found the plot to be extremely predictable, and you know, this is more of a fun romance type of thing, so it wasn't meant to be an overly complicated book. I understood that. However, it just felt more lazy, you know, like the plot was so obvious that it just felt like there was no thought to it, and the author was just more interested in writing smut, but just needed some kind of plot sprinkled in there in order to publish it as an actual book. That's what it felt like, so it wasn't the most successful for me. I did like the characters, I liked the setting of it, there were definitely some good elements to it, but overall this was not the book for me. And then my other 2-star of the month was Spookily Yours, and this one was god-awful. Quite honestly, I don't know why this book got 2 stars and not lower than that now. This had the stupidest premise, and honestly, had I actually read the premise prior to reading it, I probably wouldn't have read it, but I saw the cover is adorable, and I was like, ooh, I want to read that. And that was a poor choice on my part. This is another paranormal romance where the main character is a witch, and she adopts a cat as her familiar, and this cat is actually a shape-shifting demon who is stuck in cat form and needs her help to turn human again, but like, they fall in love while he's still a cat. You know? That was weird. I didn't like that. I'm not a shifter fan, and again, had I read the synopsis and realized that this was a shifter romance, I wouldn't have read it. So my bad on that one, but when I started it and realized that it was shifter, it was a really short audiobook, so I'm like, whatever, I'll just finish it anyways. It's a fun Halloween read, maybe it'll still be entertaining, and it was entertaining. I think that's where the second star came from, is that at least entertainment-wise, it made me laugh, so it got some points in that way. But as a book, this was terrible. The smutty scenes were so uncomfortable, especially one towards the end of the book. Again, very predictable plot line. And similar to the last one, it just felt like the author wanted to write smut and just sprinkled in some plot in there just for funsies, but didn't actually put much thought into it. So that's that on that one. Moving on to, unfortunately, a 2.5 star read as well. I picked up Boys Weekend. I had a lovely day reading this book. I went for my very first and only beach day of the year in the middle of September and got this book out from the library to read in the sun, on the sand. It was lovely. Unfortunately, the book was less lovely. I liked aspects of this. I liked the commentary on living as a trans person and dealing with previous friends who just aren't quite up to the task of learning how to respect you as a human being. But it's those kind of people who think that they're being respectful somehow and then get offended when you say that they're actually not being respectful at all. So that was really interesting, and then I liked the commentary on sort of capitalism. So this book takes place where the main character is a trans woman who is invited to her college best friend's bachelor party weekend on this man-made island in the middle of the ocean where there are no laws, anything goes, and it's this capitalistic nightmare, post-apocalyptic kind of feeling thing where there's also a multi-level marketing scheme that turns into a cult and some kind of weird monster creature lurking around. There's clones, there's a lot happening in this book. It was honestly too much going on, but also at the same time not nearly enough. I found it was so much chaos that the plot kind of got lost, and I felt like things were just coming out of left field, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense for me, unfortunately. And again, while I enjoyed the commentary of it, the art style was great, the entire plot just completely lost me, and overall I didn't end up enjoying it that much. So unfortunately, a 2.5 star read, but I would definitely read more from this author in the future. Getting into the 3-star reads, we'll start with The Saint of Bright Doors. I am so sad about this book. I love portal fantasy. It is quite literally my favorite genre in the entire world. I would read absolutely anything that has to do with portal fantasy, and when you give me a book titled The Saint of Bright Doors and mention in the synopsis how these doors are portals and monsters come out of them and all these cool things are going on, and the main character is the son of a goddess who's tasked to kill his mother and kill his father, there's like super cool, really interesting plotline, and then give me what this book actually was, I'm gonna be let down by it. The doors had basically nothing to do with the plot at all, which again, it is in the title. The doors are the title of the book, the doors are the cover of the book, and then the doors had no relevance to the plot at all. And when I got to about the halfway point and I was like, where the fuck are the doors? I was gonna DNF because I was kind of bored by it, but I kept reading because I'm like, surely the doors are gonna be a big part of this. There's gonna be some cool portal stuff happening here at some point because it's the title of the frickin' book, and then it just didn't. So that kind of sucked, unfortunately. I did like the writing style a lot. I liked the characters. It was very atmospheric. It had lots of really good elements to it, and again, I would definitely read more from this author in the future. But unfortunately, the main thing that I was reading for and was promised to me was not delivered on. So 3 stars for this one. I also gave 3 stars to Love and Focus. This one is a contemporary sapphic romance about 2 exes who end up having to work together. The main character works for a magazine where they are doing a project on the different kinds of love and what love looks like to different people, and the main character's ex-girlfriend from I think 8 years previous ends up being hired on as the photographer. These two have a very complicated relationship where when they were dating in college, the photographer character, she just kind of packed up one day and left and moved back to Korea and literally didn't say anything, just completely ghosted her girlfriend. And then her girlfriend was obviously very upset and was trying to rebound, and then met a guy, fell in love with him, and things moved very, very fast. They moved in together, got engaged, and at the start of the book, they've now been together for 7 years, and he has just told her that he's been cheating on her and leaves her. So her whole life is in chaos, and then learns that she now has to work with her ex that she never really got over. So very complicated, very messy. you know that I love messy queer characters. This, however, was so not the kind of mess that I like. This was just chaotic and toxic and unhealthy, and there was not a single part of my being that rooted for this couple at all. I feel like both of them desperately needed therapy and definitely shouldn't have gotten together. Even at the end of the book, I still felt like this shouldn't have been a romance novel. I feel like these two had way too much to work on, and their issues were not discussed to the level that they should have been discussed. There were, of course, conversations addressing the issues and that kind of thing. However, I feel like the level of maturity that both of these characters displayed was not conducive of a healthy relationship, and it made it really difficult to just enjoy it as a romance because I just really didn't root for this couple at all. And then also to mention the very blatant biphobia of the one character. So the character who is a photographer, she's a lesbian. The other character is bisexual. The biphobia in this book was a very quick thought that the one character had. It didn't end up being a huge part of the book, but I honestly wish that it had been. When I read that part of it, I was very taken aback, and I considered DNFing it, but I was like, you know, maybe that will be brought up again in the future and it'll end up being commentary on the rampant biphobia within the queer community, especially from lesbians. But unfortunately, it was not addressed. It was just kind of mentioned and then left alone after that, so that really sucked. That left a really sour taste in my mouth. And then on top of that, I didn't really enjoy the rest of the romance anyways. I liked certain parts of this book. I liked the friendships and the found family elements to it, and that's why I got 3 stars, but otherwise this was not for me. My last 3-star was Honeybloods. This is one of those books where I gave it a higher rating than I actually felt like it deserved, because this is a case where this is purely just not the book for me, and I probably shouldn't have read this one, and that's not the author's fault. I didn't realize that this one was a YA. I thought that they were at least college age, and had I known that these were teenagers, like 16, 17 years old, I wouldn't have read this book, and that is not a reflection on the book, that's just my own personal taste. So I still gave it 3 stars. This is a YA sapphic vampire story, and it was fun. I did like it. I'm just not a fan of contemporary YA books. The vampire stuff was fun. It was cheesy, mostly in a good way, not always in a good way, but sometimes. And yeah, this was fun, but just kind of okay. Moving on to the 3.5 stars. First up is Zomromcom by Olivia Dade. Honestly, I don't have much to say about this one. It's a zombie rom-com. It was campy and fun, but a little bit too much camp and not enough world building. This book was over 400 pages, and I feel like I didn't get much about the world building, but there were a lot of dumb jokes, and there definitely should have been a bit less of that. Not fully gone, because that's what made the book what it is, but just a little bit less of that and a little bit more world building, and this would have been great. But as is, it was fine. I will read book 2, but if there's going to be more than 2 books, I probably will leave it at book 2. The Paradox Hotel I read for my in-person book club that I'm part of. This one I read on the first day of the month. I listened to the entire audiobook in one day, and I honestly don't remember much about it. I know that it was very chaotic and not at all what I was hoping it would be. This one takes place in a hotel where these trillionaires have discovered the secret to time travel, and now they sell it as an experience where you can pay obscene amounts of money to go spend time in a different time period of your choosing, and it's just become this capitalistic nightmare, basically. The main character is a security guard at this hotel. The book is basically just a murder mystery while she does her security guard job, and that's really it. There was shockingly little time travel for a book that is largely about time travel, and it was just kind of a letdown because it had this really, really cool setting that was not explored to its fullest capacity at all, and the plot was just kind of a mess a lot of the times. There were some elements that were cool, but overall this was just kind of a flop for me. And looking back on it, 3.5 stars is probably generous. It's more like a 3. The last 3.5 star was Don't Let the Forest In. Again, looking back, this is probably more like a 3 or a 2.5, but I gave it a 3.5 star right after finishing it. I will say that when I was getting my notes ready to film this wrap up and I saw the title, I had no idea what that was at all. I had to go through my Goodreads to find the cover to even know what that book was. It left my brain immediately. This was fine. It was also a YA, dark academia kind of thing. The vibes immaculate. I love a good creepy forest with monsters lurking in the shadows. That is so my vibe. As a horror novel, this really did work in that way. It had excellent tension. It was the perfect amount of creepy. Like, all of that was done very, very well. My issue was with the characters. Again, YA contemporary, I just really wasn't interested in the whole school setting of it. And then there was a plot device that was used towards the end of it that I am personally not a fan of in the slightest, and had I known that the plot was going to go there, I probably wouldn't have picked this up. I don't feel like it's a problematic plot device, it's just not one that I enjoy reading. But yeah, the plot towards the end just really wasn't for me. It was not my vibe, which was unfortunate because the rest of this book was honestly pretty good. I was very engaged for the first maybe half of it. The climax was very well done, but it really lost me towards the end of it when I realized where the plot was going. My 4 stars included Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This one was for Backless Bash. I liked it a lot. It was well written. I thought the battle scenes were very interesting. I'm looking forward to carrying on in the series, but I honestly don't have much to say about this one. The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab. I snuck this book in on the last day of the month, so if you've seen my October TBR, this is in there, but I filmed that a little bit too early and ended up reading this before the end of September, so here it is here. This was also for Backless Bash. I had such a good time reading this. I'm so happy that I finally read it. It was excellent. The atmosphere was perfection. This book feels like September, so I really did read it at the perfect time. I loved the characters, the plot was interesting, the writing was fantastic. My only gripe with it was that I wish the magic system was more involved. I would have loved to see the magic be used more and to really understand it better. As is, it felt like the magic could have been fully removed from this book and the book wouldn't have changed very much. But the magic was really interesting, so I would have loved to just see more of it. It would have just made this book a lot more interesting. But as is, still fantastic. I had a great time with it, and again, I flew through it, so it was definitely very engaging and kept me interested the whole way through. Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man was also a 4-star read. The first half of the book, I wasn't really sold on it because it felt like the exact same book as book 1, but the second half took me by surprise. This got real dark and real interesting, and yeah, not much to say about it, but I did have a pretty good time reading this book, and I hope that there is more Vera in the future. I also gave 4 stars to My Darling Dreadful Thing. This one is a sapphic horror novel that gave me excellent Crimson Peak vibes. If you're a fan of that movie, ooh, read this book. It was great. I love the atmosphere of it. It was creepy and horrifying and disgusting and all these things. It was so good, and I definitely want to read more from this author. I think their other book is out, Blood on Her Tongue, I think it's called, and I'm planning on reading that one very, very soon. This author has a fantastic writing style, and I can't wait to dive more into their books. The last of the 4 stars was Someone You Can Build a Nest In. This was hysterical. Oh my god, this was so funny. This is a cozy horror comedy, which sounds like a very weird combination, and somehow this worked perfectly. This was so my kind of book. It was funny and stupid and weirdly heartwarming and somehow managed to be cozy, even though the main character is a monster who very gruesomely eats humans. She like consumes humans and then uses their bones to build herself a body. And just gleefully does so, but somehow it still felt cozy, and I don't understand how that worked, but it did. And it was so funny and so interesting. I had a blast with this book, and I will definitely read more from this author as well. I gave 4.5 stars to Faithbreaker, the 3rd and final book in the Godkiller trilogy. This was an excellent conclusion to this trilogy. I had a blast reading it. It had me laughing, it had me crying, it had me on this roller coaster of emotions that I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm so sad for this series to be over, but I'm also really happy to have read it. I can't really say much about it because it would spoil the entirety of the series, so I'm going to leave it at that. But I will say that this book ruined me emotionally, and I loved it for that. And finally, my one and only 5-star of the month was The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Haro, which was also read for Backless Bash. Oh man, this was good. My god, this was phenomenal. I knew that I would love it because I love this author so much, but for some reason, I put off reading it for 5 years. Like, what? I've loved everything else that I've read from this author, but for some reason I was weirdly intimidated by this book. Like, it's a larger book, but it's not huge by any means, and it's historical fantasy, which I also really enjoy, so I don't know why I was here to pick this up, but I was. But finally did so, and I flew through this book. I could not put it down. It was so gripping and engaging. Everything about it was just so well done and so interesting. beautifully written, beautiful characters, beautiful relationships. The stakes felt high, the magic was cool. Everything about it was so well done, and I'm so glad that I finally picked this one up. Sorry for the sudden drop in camera quality, but my battery just died, and I literally only had the superlatives left to do, so I'm just gonna finish this on my phone so I can get this video done. What do I say? Every month, something always goes wrong with the wrap-ups. Every single time. So the best book of the month was, of course, The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow, my only 5-star. The worst book was, without a doubt, Spookily Yours. Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist also got 2 stars, but that one was at least sapphic, so I enjoyed it marginally better than Spookily Yours. So the award for this one goes to this book. The biggest surprise goes to Someone You Can Build a Nest In, because I did not expect to have a cozy horror comedy work so well. I figured that I would like it because I love horror novels, but horror comedy is very much a hit or miss, and then you throw cozy into that, and I was very skeptical, and I shouldn't have been. This was great. The biggest disappointment goes to The Saint of Bright Doors. I was expecting a book about doors and portal because that's what I was promised via the title and the cover and the synopsis, and then it wasn't about that at all. The most memorable book was Faithbreaker by Hannah Kaner. That ending, oh man, the way that this trilogy ended was just phenomenal. It took me by surprise. I really didn't see that coming, and it was something, and it's gonna stick in my brain for a long time. This was just such a fantastic series. One of the best written fantasy series that I read in a very, very long time. The most forgettable goes to Don't Let the Forest In, because I literally forgot what this book even was. Not just that I read it this month, but I literally forgot what it was. I saw the title in my nose and I was like, the fuck is that book? So definitely the most forgettable. Tied for that, I would say, is The Paradox Hotel. I read the whole thing in one day, and immediately after finishing it, like literally within 5 minutes, I had already forgotten the ending. So my friend in the book club got maybe 10% of the way through it a few days after I was reading it and wasn't really feeling it, so asked me to spoil the ending for them to see if it was worth continuing, and I literally couldn't tell them what happened in it, and that was only maybe a week after I read it. The best audiobook of the month goes to Someone You Can Build a Nest In. The narrator for this one was perfection. They did such a good job with this book. They were almost monotone, but in a way that worked really well for the story, and especially for the character. It felt like this narrator really understood the character and did a fantastic performance. Finally, the prettiest cover of the month also goes to Don't Let the Forest In. This cover is beautiful. Oh man, I love it so much, which is also why I'm so sad that I didn't love the book. I was really hoping for this to be a 5-star read and I could buy it and have this gorgeous book on my shelves, but sadly, not the case. But that'll do it for this video. Let me know down in the comments what your best and worst books of the month were, and if you've read any of the ones that I have, also let me know. But in the meantime, thanks a bunch for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world, and I'll catch you in the next video.